So good morning, students. We'll start our topic number 2 of Unit 3, which is still a continuation of our previous topic of site. So the first one, in continuation with site of our last class, hazards on the construction site. So there are a huge range of hazards of construction sites which could cause accidents or harm to workers and visitors, taking this into consideration when planning out the site. Next, falling objects. We must prevent the objects falling beyond the site boundaries. With scaffolding, we can do this and tow boards, brick guards, or netting. Then, storage and stacking. A good way of preventing accidents with stored materials or equipment is to have them in a separate compound away from the main site and public access. Then, excavations. Workers and the public can be injured if they fall into excavations or manholes, etc. Therefore, making sure the barriers and covers are necessary to ensure everyone's safety. So other things that we should bear in mind are hazardous substances, slips, trips and falls, dust, noise and vibrations, and then energy sources. Next, material storage and waste management on construction sites. Because the law states we should keep our construction site in good order, it is paramount or mandatory that the storage and disposal of materials on site is done so as in safe and efficient manner. So material storage on a construction site. Good material storage depends on adequate planning and cooperation from all parties. For large projects, storage of materials will be included in the construction plan. However, for smaller projects, we may want to consider the following points that I'll be stating now. Storage areas. Having designated storage areas for each of the different materials we are storing is important. So particularly if we are storing hazardous materials. Next, flammable materials. And hazardous materials will need to be stored away from the other storage areas and ensure that they are protected from accidental ignition or contamination. At height. If you have to store materials at a height, we have to make sure that the guardrails are in place and necessary mechanical aids are on hand to prevent the falls or injuries. Next, tidiness. Keeping the storage areas tidy should be a number priority and something that is checked every day. Deliveries. Having a delivery plan helps keeping the materials stored on site to a minimum as well as restricting the amount of personnel accessing accessing the area. So waste management on a construction site. Before we start working on the construction site, we need to think about how the waste produced will be managed and who will be responsible for the disposal of the waste produced on the site as well as dealing with any problems which may arise. Next, waste inside buildings. When working inside of a building, we have to make sure that there are enough wheeled bins to allow for effective disposal of any waste generated while working on the inside of buildings. Then, welfare on a construction site. Welfare relates to the treatment and facilities that workers and visitors are subjected to while working or visiting the construction site, that is, abiding or visiting the construction site. So, they will need access to adequate toilets and washing facilities, a place for preparing and eating refreshments, and somewhere for storing or drying clothing or protective equipment. So, list of required facilities are toilets, washing facilities, drinking water, changing rooms and lockers, and facilities for rest. Administration on a construction site. When working or managing a construction site, there are a number of assessments and reports which have to be submitted in order to comply and to be lawful. So the points bulleted below are notifications, risk and assessment, CDM plan and file, that is construction development management plan and file, thorough examination reports, inspection reports, method statements, and any injuries or dangerous occurrences. You can give your name and roll number in your chat box for attendance. Thank you for this class.
Either on one or both sides of the road. This is really only suitable if the market is not on the main road. So we must ensure we have parking for not only for the users but also for the vehicles that brings in the commodities, so that it does not create congestion. Example B, a traditional solution is to locate facilities such as open sales area or covered stalls in the central square or village green with a road system, preferably around the edge. So it is easier to put in all the sales that is going to happen in the center, and we can create a vehicular movement around this around the market. So only people who want to come inside and get the commodities will have a parking space, park their vehicles and come inside and get whatever they want, and it does not interfere with the normal vehicular movement or road systems. Plan for supplementary uses. Public space. The market should provide an atmosphere favorable for selling. For large market, the circulation system is usually best arranged, so there is an hierarchy of space with one or major trading areas, off of which there are minor spaces serving other functions. So we must also ensure we have public spaces in which people will come and get distributed to the smaller shops. Location of facilities. Facilities that serve all market users such as toilet, rubbish bins and boats that give price and other information should be centrally located so that they are easily accessible. So when you get into a site, you must know where things are available for what you're looking for. So if for example you're entering a site and you want to just get vegetable, you must know where to go to get the vegetable, and you don't get lost. So this can be satisfied by having proper signboards and direction systems in the entrance itself, and pricing, so that people don't get lost or spend a lot of time just in searching for the shop. In large markets, such facilities will need to be provided in several different locations. So if it is a small market, these location details and price details can be kept just on the entrance. But if it's a huge shop, when huge market, you can keep everything depending upon the zoning that you are doing. Uses around the fringe of the market. It is important for a market to be lively place in order to attract customers. Space should be allocated around the edge of the market for business activities such as small scale shop. We must be sensitive to what is going to happen around the market as well. So we must have space for such type of movement or temporary vendors to sell their commodities. Seating accommodation is a common feature on the fringe of the traditional market space for both traders and shoppers to relax. We must also have seating spaces, because if it's a huge market, walking along the market and shopping everything will be very tiring. So we should have seating spaces not just for the public to use, but also for the shoppers when they get a break time, for them to relax and communicate with other shoppers. Spaces are often provided for cafes, cooked food stand, which should be concentrated at junction of road and path in order to maximize trade. Portable stands or small huts are normally used. So when you are selling things like ready food or small peanut shops or something like this, it has to be located in heart of the market, or in which it attracts a lot of crowd, so people can, so it increases the trade, and people are also getting diverse actions for them to relax and to enjoy the whole process. So now let's summarize what we have learned in the whole presentation as learning outcomes. First, we saw brief summary about preparing the site plan and what are the thought process has to go inside. And then we moved on to see about different design criteria to be followed, explained with market as a case example, and different we started with location and what are the planning principles and how sensitive we have to be while addressing each and every design element. And then we moved to see the importance of organizing land use even with a site, and explained with market as an example. So we saw how zoning is important within a site and how it has to be done with an example of market space. And questions: summarize the importance of site plan. What are the different site layout principles that has to be adopted during a site plan? Explain the important facilities a master plan might require in order to satisfy its user with a case example. What are the important land use principles to be followed in a site? Thank you. Of roads, different types of road and how it is classified, and then we are going to move into parking criteria, different type of parking and what has to be done and what should not be done, so that we can make your design according to it, and we can design your road systems with less traffic congestion, and it is much more beneficial for the users. Vehicular and pedestrian circulation. Non-urban roads within the country are classified into 6 types. So these are different types of classification done in India. First is expressway, and then we have national highways, and then state highways. So usually these are different type of highways which is present to mobilize from one location to far off location, and it is usually carries goods and commodities in large quantities, and it is very wide. And then we have major district roads, other district roads and village roads. These three are comparatively much lesser scale, but it takes up a lot of more population, because it is in inter roads or intercity roads which has a lot of people commuting on a daily basis, but the width and size of the road is less compared to the expressways, because expressways is the one that is going to take care of a lot of heavy vehicles, but whereas these ones are our everyday public transportation and private transport, public and private transport is going to get moved along these type of roads. So now let's move on to see what detail for each of these classification. First, expressways. The purpose of expressways would be to cater for motility of large volume of motor traffic at high speed. They connect major areas of increasing visitor count, and they are intended to serve trips of medium and long length in between prominent residential areas, industry or business concentration, and in central business district. So expressways is a type of road network which is mainly used to transfer your goods or commodities from one area to other. So it is a broad, it's like a broad way in which you can it is used to move heavy vehicles with goods or raw materials. Vehicle parking, loading and unloading of products and passengers and pedestrian traffics are not allowed in these kinds of highways. So as we know, since expressways are going to connect between two main areas, we cannot entertain people stopping at every point, so that it will delay the whole process of goods being transferred from one point to other. So so the whole road system is designed in such a way it does not promote parking or intersection or making U-turns, so that goods can be transferred in a short distance and much more quickly. National highways, these include main highways running throughout the distance and breadth of the country, connection of major paths, highways of adjoining countries, state capital, large commercial and tourist centers, etc. National highways is roads that connects within the country or within the state are called national highways, which is mainly used by public as well as for goods to get, or as well as the goods to get transferred. When public use it, it is mainly used to communicate from one place to a very far off place. So and when the goods get transferred, or it is being distributed from the major place to within the city or within the district. State highways, these include main arterial routes of any state connecting district headquarters and major cities in the state and connecting these with the national highways of the neighboring state. State highways is the road system which is going to run within your state. So national highways is the one that runs throughout the country, and from the goods that is being taken from the national highways is finally going to get transferred to the state highways, which is going to distribute everything all the raw materials or the products within the state using state highways. So you can see a lot of difference in the pictures of how in Broadway is expressway looks, and how your national highway is, and how your state highways. Major district roads, these are essential roads within a district serving parts of production and market and linking these together or while using the main highways. So these are major district roads which is going to get connected to a state highway, in from which everything is going to get transferred and then it is going to get distributed even much more in a smaller scale. When you have these segregations, there is a lot of time saving for the commodities to get transferred from one district to other. Say for example, if you're taking some goods from one district to the other district and there are a lot of intermediate smaller district, you can avoid going inside all this smaller district by taking just the state highways. A lot of time is being saved, and efficiency in transferring these goods will increase when you have these separations, and everything, all the roads has been designed in such a way people do not waste their time in going inside and coming out. Other district roads, they are streets serving non-urban areas of production and providing them with outlet of market center, headquarters and other main roads. So these are other district roads are your main roads that we are using in our daily basis to commute to our work, and other colleges and offices. So these are other district road which are going to connect to our actual site, to our daily to commute to our daily requirement spaces. Village roads. These are roads adjoining villages or group of villager with each other, and also the nearest road of any higher class urban roads. So village roads are the one or much more smaller compared to your district roads and other state highway roads. So this is going to be much more narrow because of the population that are going to use the road is less compared to city roads. So these are the roads which connects within a village, or it can also connect a group of villages. Urban roads are classified into your following 5 categories. First is expressways, atrial streets, subatrial streets, collector streets, and local streets. So now looking just at the urban level, so within urban scenario we have 5 different classification of roads. So these are the list, and let's look into it each in detail. Expressways. The function of expressways is the similar regardless of if the transfers through urban areas or non-city. So it is very similar to what we saw what the expressways do. It takes or transports goods and services in huge quantity within an urban setup. Atrial streets. This system of streets together with the expressways where they exist serve as the key network for thorough traffic flow. These roadways may generally be spaced under 1 to 5 kilometer in hugely developed center business place, and at 8 kilometer or maybe more in sparsely developed urban fringe. The atrial streets are generally divided highways with full or partial access parking, loading and unloading activities are usually restricted, and regulated pedestrian should cross only at intersection. So this type of road is the one that is going to connect to your from your expressway to your much more district roads. So the streets which connects expressway and district streets can be called as atrial roads. So the width is comparatively lesser than expressway, but it is more than your district roads, and it is a place in which you are going to segregate your goods, where you can have loading and offloading can happen, so that it does not disturb the city activity, but and it also promotes faster transportation systems. Subatrial roads. These include functionally much like atrial street, but with somewhat lower level of travel mobility. Their spacing are different from about 0 to 5 kilometer in the central downtown to 3 to 5 kilometer inside the suburban fringe. So subatrial roads are usually of length 0 to 5 kilometers, which is going to connect your atrial roads and your district roads. These are roads which is mainly used for travel mobility. Collector streets. The function of collector streets should be to locate visitors from nearby streets and feed it to their atrial and subatrial roads. So these are the main node points from which the population is going to get divided, or going to take their own pathways to get into their final destination, or vice versa. They may be located in residential neighborhoods, commercial areas and industrial areas. Usually complete approach is granted on these roadways from abutting properties. So this is the road which is going to get connected to your local street, and the local street is going to take you to your site or your development. Local street. These are intended mainly to supply use of abutting property, and normally will not carry substantial amount of traffic. Majority of visits in urban area originate from or terminate on these roads. So these are local streets are the ones that we use, or that we move around on a daily basis, which is connecting the main nodes to your actual street level. Local streets could possibly be non-commercial, commercial or industrial, depending on the prominent use of the nearby area. They permit unrestricted parking and pedestrian movements. So your local streets can be a combination of completely silent road to completely commercial road. It depends on in which area the streets are being designed and developed. Parking, automated parking, basic parking rule: do not park any vehicle on the part of road where traffic is moving. Drive the vehicle off the road onto the shoulder while stopping. Parking is an important aspect to in a site planning and layout principle, so that we do not create any traffic congestion, or we do not stop the public from the movement. So we need to make sensible parking arrangements, so it can not only satisfy the people who are using it, but it also accommodates for the number of growth, or it can be used for the increasing growth pattern. Do not park in space in such a place where one do not have clear view for at least 50 meters in both directions. While designing parking space, we must be sure we must create parcel of parking from which you can see on either sides, almost 50 meters on either sides, so we have a clear vision of what is happening in the parking space. Do not park in the place that blocks a vehicle.